over the top. In other words, this will bring this to fruition as early as next spring. To provide sidewalks for this whole town, we're talking about years. We're trying to do this, and it's an excellent thing to do, but I'd like to see a plan of what we would get with $250,000, where that sidewalk would go, and I would be willing to go for that. As far as the skate park, I think it's recreation is an important quality of life item in this town, and that a skate park is something that is important, and it's for the protection of children in a safe environment. It actually keeps skateboarding off the sidewalks and streets, and it would also lend protecting public and private property from damage, because how many times have we seen children skating up and down the public library steps and whatever? And I think if they had a place to go, it's an important item to this town that people seem to be interested in, and has generated a lot of support. So I would be willing to expend some amount of the funds that are here available towards the skate park, and the rest to sidewalks, or if there's some other venture that's more important. But I do agree with everyone that $250,000 towards sidewalks in a dangerous area, or a school area, or just an area that needs sidewalks is an important thing. So that's basically my feeling about it. I would support some expenditure of money towards the skate park.
Are you chairman of the sidewalk committee, Chief?
Well, we haven't had a sidewalk committee in years, I don't know.
I think you're still on the books somewhere, right?
Yeah, somewhere on the books.
You're on the books, but there's no money in the account.
I think it'll be reactivated.
Yeah, the committee's still on the books, but there's no money in the account. Yeah. Mr. Murphy?
I'd certainly, like you, I'd be open to suggestions as to how we might use the funds. I do realize the board took a consensus in the past that it would go to sidewalks. I think I was even in attendance at that meeting, but they didn't take a formal vote. There are a lot of needs within the community skateboard park, amongst many others. So I would be open to seeing what the town administrator comes up with, to get a little more information about what the sidewalk, what that would do for sidewalks. But I think more important than that, and you mentioned it, the sidewalk committee, and potentially maybe this is an opportunity to get that started again, and we're not likely to get it done in one shot, and maybe not even in some of our lifetimes, but we have to start somewhere, and we have to start to move forward with it. And I'd like to see the sidewalk committee come back, and whether it's all of this funding or part of this funding, to develop a plan to address and prioritize and to be an advocate for sidewalks, and to be in here requesting funding on an annual basis, whether or not they get it. But I really think this is an issue we have to address on a long-term basis, and can't address it if you don't plan for it. So we need to. So I'd like to see that, Tom, as part of that component, getting that committee reformulated, and whether this is initial funding or full funding. I mean, we don't even know the order of magnitude of. I can guess it's probably higher than the number Jim had too. But to get the school department involved, and to know what we're dealing with and what we're facing, as well as what other ideas folks may have, because as Dana points out, there's a lot of different needs in the community.
The Public Works Department they do have a plan that's been worked on and updated over the years as far as prioritization of new and upgrading of existing sidewalks. But again, over the years, what we've been doing is, usual manner, stopping out the brush fires if something occurs, like when the Burrows Road was being done, that area down there. We did something to accommodate the need for safe foot traffic there in a very narrow, tight area, which seems to be working out fairly well. We have some other high priority areas, but the cost of doing are extraordinary. I mean, just one section down by Park Street, the Chestnut Street end, very dangerous situation down by North Hill Drive, Tacoma Circle, heading into the little park area down there. Very dangerous situation where there's bus stops and there's no sidewalks and a lot of blind driveways and kids down there. And we're talking about, I think Dave said $125,000, $150,000 just to address that small section of road because of the topography and the ledge and all that has to be done there. It's just one section. So Jim's right when he's saying the whole thing that we're looking at, the magnitude of it is huge. But nonetheless, we still, over the years, I know we've been trying to address it, but as we prioritize things, it's fallen down the list of prioritization. We've tried to fund things, build up a kitty for them, things like the ice and snow fund, things like the pension fund, which again we put $400,000 in over the last 3 years, which is now gone. It's a good thing we did what we did. Those types of necessities and requirements have to be met, and unfortunately, when we start to prioritize things, that's why I think the previous board felt, $250,000 isn't necessarily seed money. What it is it's a windfall. Let's address part of the problem that everybody can enjoy it and gain the benefit, rather than just one group within the community. But I think that's for a discussion for another day, and I encourage the administrator to get the suggestions and bring it to the board in early September. As far as reserving space on the warrant for October, I know Dana feels that it should come up in April, but if the inclination is to support an effort to do something like the skateboard park, then we may want to move forward so they can go out to bid in the wintertime, so that come spring it can get done, rather than putting it off a whole another year too. So it's whatever the wishes of the board are. And again, any member of the board can request that a warrant article be put on too. So, but I think of this type of an issue, I think there should be some sort of a consensus. If a member of the board can request it. Yeah, Mr. Rowe.
What happens to that money? Where is it now? What happens to it if we don't decide exactly what to use it?
Okay. Mr. Young.
It's a separate account, but we can't utilize it unless it's appropriate at a town meeting. It's not, it doesn't go to any budget. It's just separated, but we can't use it until the town appropriates.
It's in a separate account, drawing interest.
Well, yeah, it's in a separate account with money. It's in a separate. It's allocated within the account's funding sources, the funding mechanism, and accounting of those funds. There's an allocation of the $276,000 sitting there from the proceeds of the fund.
Drawing interest.
Interest with the rest of the town's money that's sitting in the bank. But the allocation of the interest on that money, I don't know how Mr. Dow is handling that. Whether it's just going into the general fund at this point, or if it stays with that account. We can get a.
I think, Mr. Chairman, it goes to the general fund.
The interest on the money goes into the general fund, free cash. So the interest on the money can.
Can we stipulate and have that interest stay within that fund?
We could do that if that's what the wishes of the board are. We could do that.
Well, I would like to see it until such time as we decide what we're going to do with it. I would like to see that in the fund and build the fund itself.
I think, and I think Mr. Dow can just allocate whatever interest rate he's getting on his money right now over this given time period since we've received the funds, and allocate whatever interest has been gained on that amount, portion of money to that account.
I can check that.
Yeah, why don't you check that and get back to us as far as the accounting of it and how it's handled, and then. But again, as far as the use of the principal amount of those funds, it's somewhat restricted, so it can't go for general operating expenses. It's that interest, the administrator put it out. Mr. Vino.
So even, thank you, Mr. Chair. So even to use this for sidewalk funding, we have to go before a town meeting
Oh, sure.
That's correct.
to do that.
It's all subject to appropriation.
Okay. All right.
All right, so as far as reserving warrant, article space. Because again, I don't anticipate the administrator will be getting back to us until the beginning of September, first week of September. What's the feeling?
Well, it may be my intention to go for 250,000 for sidewalk
In October.
in October. I'm inclined right now to do that.
I would suggest that maybe you reserve 2 spots, one for the sidewalk.
All we need is one spot, as far as, one spot. We can have one general article for the,
Oh, and then you
then
appropriate
we can appropriate it.
If you can,
General
I
enough.
realize you can make the article that general and then have the appropriation be specific.
I think
That's
we-
fine then.
I think we could do that.
Reserve spot.
I'll agree with that. We agree. We disagree. Oh, you agree. You generally look at April, but.
Well, if you want to put my only point is I really feel we should wait till April, but I have no objection to putting it to the townspeople.
Okay, so the consensus is reserve a spot for it. And then, again, we'll see what comes out of the suggestion box. And then my guess is there'll be a few. And,
Yeah.
and then we can determine what we'll be recommending to town meeting and how to allocate the funds. Okay, town administrators report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of updates on matters. As I informed the board regarding Comstar on their agreement, I was able to reduce their fee from 6.5% to 5.5%. So, I mean, I think we're getting a good deal out of Comstar at this point. They've agreed to include all of the board's recommendations, and it was written into their agreement. So they're fine set up. So now that we get the ambulance, we eventually get the abatement policy completed on the operation.
You signed the contract?
Yes.
It's a done deal?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The election precincts, we received notice from the local elections division, the new commission, they've approved the redistricting of the towns effective December 31st.
Well, the precinct 4?
Somewhat on that subject, on our bylaws, the unaccepted street bylaw, received notice from the Office of Attorney General that they are reviewing the bylaw, and the town's been extended to October, maximum to October 23rd. They have concerns over the bylaw. The main concern is the possible inconsistencies between the proposed amendment and state law. Primarily, why was it a general bylaw versus a zoning bylaw? As the board knows, the general bylaw, the appeal process is to the courts, and the zoning bylaw, the appeal process is to the ZBA. And we're reviewing this as being, is it a zoning bylaw versus a general bylaw? And there's a possibility that if it looks at as a zoning bylaw, if they approve this as a zoning bylaw, then there's a possibility that all zoning bylaws issues would take effect, such as the appeal process would have to be the ZBA and not the courts, if they recognize it as a zoning bylaw.
Which appears to be at the heart of the issue initially anyway.
That's,
Good luck.
Can I ask for reassignment?
There's yeah. You're offering to take the 4th of July committee with Mr. Muldoon. I'll trade
I wonder why you got that so easily, Mr. Murphy.
Be careful what you ask for.
That's right.
so that is the only outstanding attorney.
But as far as that, so they haven't made a final determination yet? Just they're looking for an explanation as to why it was presented in the fashion that it was?
That's
So they'll
correct.
before they make the determination?
Yes, but concern is that if they approve it as a quote zoning bylaw, not a general bylaw, the concern is probably that the appeal process, they're not stating it, this is just my opinion, is that the appeal process may end up becoming the zoning appeal process where we end up going to the zoning board of appeals, not the courts.
But would it mean, if they'll just say yes or no at this point, then remand it back to the town for reconsideration, so we can go forward from there and determine whether or not, it would still have to be enacted by town meeting again if it's going to be a zoning bylaw, because initially it was presented as a general bylaw. And then, correct?
Correct. But there may be the third option, is either thumbs up, thumbs down, or the third, they may approve it, but recognize it as a zoning bylaw.
Which, okay.
And then all the process for appeals and grandfathering rights then take it back.